I tried on how to use the navigation tools, since some of you are having difficulty with them, and the online ones may not be the best for those. So switching to the move tool or the W key, you see I get this transpose line, and wherever I click on the mesh, it's going to, if you just click, it's going to orient normal to that surface. So you see as I click on these, it kind of projects off normal to that, which is kind of nice because I can turn on polyframe, I can mouse over that, and it snaps to verts on here. So if I mouse over that center one, now you see I get a nice normal line off this cylinder, which can be very handy just in terms of moving things. So the thing to understand about the transpose line here is that you can control several things about it. One is its location. If I just want to move it around, I just mouse over the blue part of it and just click and drag on that, and I can position it anywhere. Understand though that this can, depending on your view, it can get it kind of out of whack with things, and a lot of the movement and scaling and rotation depend on the location of this cursor. So I'm just going to click here in this, and then you can kind of, and then I'm going to snap, and your orthographic views are very helpful for this, so you try not to be in perspective mode when you use the tool. Where I found best results or when you're not in it. So the middle circle here is the key to the move tool. It moves, if I click, hold, and drag, it's going to move this thing in X and Y, or X and Y relative to the screen view there. So let's get this thing centered back. I can move the object around. In fact, let me turn the floor on here so you can see what it's doing relative to that. The outer ring here, let's go back to this view, and the center one, not the outer one. If I click on the outer part of it, and by outer I mean this rightmost ring, but the outer ring of that lets me change the location of any of the points on it. The inner one, this lets me, as you can see, if I click, hold, and drag on that, that lets me kind of stretch the object out along the line. If I hold down Shift while I'm doing that, now I can scale the object out. And this is what I like to use a lot to lengthen, say, a cylinder in this case. Let me undo that. Also note that if I click, hold, and drag that line, I can kind of position it where I want. And now when I do that, it does from both ends. Again, if I hold Shift, it can constrain it. So I can scale this thing out symmetrically this way. And then note that if I want to come out and click on this thing out here, just to kind of relocate it, and then click here to get that line out. If I click, hold, and drag on, let's go to a top view, on this one, it starts to collapse in the cylinder. And let me rotate around and you see what I've done there. This can also be very useful. Say I want something that's part of a half cylinder, I can come around, let's see, let's get it to this view and drag that, and I can kind of squish that in, or trim that in to get, say, a piece like that. Let's undo those, and then let's see, anything else? And these little secondary axes out here let me change the orientation kind of on the fly. So if I'm in this view where it's sticking out and I want it that view or going that direction, I can. I can also, when I drag the line out, if I hold Shift, you see it constrains to a 15-degree change around. And also note that if I'm, say, at this orientation and I click and hold and drag, sometimes when it's down here, it's trying to snap to some of these other verts. If I get up here, now it's staying relative to the screen. So pay attention to the size of these outer rings, and you can kind of tell when they're going back in space or heading out in an odd direction, they will change size. So you see what's happening there. Whereas if I hold down shift, see they're changing size. If I hold down shift, now they're going to stay in that orientation that the screen was in. So I'm going to pause this video and pick up with the scale and rotate tools. Okay, picking up with the scale and rotate tools. Let's switch to the scale mode. Scale mode is kind of just that. In this case, it's not the center ring that's the more critical one, it's the outer ring, because this is the, or the rightmost in this case, this is the one that controls just the overall scale, say, of an object. So as I click, hold, and drag on that, I can scale it up or down. There's no need for the shift tool to be held for any of this. It's always going to scale proportionally. But note that if I put the tool here and do this, it's scaling from where that from this part of it. So be aware of where you're scaling from sometimes. Yeah, so you can see that. Let me get kind of around to here. It scales from this point. And then let's see, the center one will do kind of a squash and stretch. So note that as I scale out in as the diameter increases, the length pretty much stays the same, does not go out with it. This is called squash and stretch. See, as I scale in a couple of times, you know, it's pulling this down, but the length is pretty much staying the same. And then the inner one, I think as far as I can tell, I hardly ever use it, so I'm just assuming that it's just a uniform scale, but from this point, or from this point, since it's now changed. Let's see if we can make that. Yeah, notice how it switched the direction of this. Okay, so picking up with the rotate tool, and we'll pull it off to that side, and then the outer ring, again in this case, is the rightmost in this direction, is the one that controls the rotation. So I can rotate around, and again, orthographic views are critical for this, and being able to hold down the shift key, see, snaps it again to 15-degree increments. And again, the orientation of and location of the transpose line is critical for this. So if it's here, now it's going to rotate around this point, and you can see that it's changing that. If you grab the center line here, or the center point on this, and do this, it's going to rotate around the axis of the transpose line. So let me undo that and say put it sticking off that way, and now you'll see it'll kind of rotate around that line that way. And then the inner one here is kind of a free form. It's very similar to your rotation around the as I'm navigating, using my right mouse button to navigate around that. Again, I almost always use this button right here. Occasionally this one, but most of the time, well, sorry, the other way around. Most of the time it's this right out here. And again, it can be helpful to change the direction here if you want to move things in a different way. And again, you can draw out transpose lines and then switch views and rotate. You can lengthen these lines. You also can use these kind of as scale tools to get a sense of location along things. The white ring out here will change. Say I've kind of drawn this thing off in that direction. If I click on that, it will almost always orient this thing to the screen. Again, I never use it, so I'm not even exactly sure why it's there. yeah, there you can see you get a little bit better sense of what it's doing. Most of the time, though, I'm just going to use it to let's undo some of this. Here, rotate around. Hope these help, and I will see you in class.